Tonight, I want you all to ask yourselves a question. What's one word that the world would tell you defines leadership? What's one word that society would tell you basically describes leadership? Words like inclusive, accepting, maybe even people-pleasing may come to mind. Basically, what society will tell you is that good leaders find a way to make everyone happy. And that's just not true. Tonight, I want you to realize that true leadership is lonely. Turn to Numbers chapter 13. Numbers chapter 13, and we'll start in verse 17. Numbers chapter 13 and verse 17. This is the story of the spies who are sent into Canaan. They're sent to examine God's promises and the land that God has promised to the people of Israel. Verse 17. Moses sent them to spy out the land of Canaan and said to them, "Go up into the Negeb and go into the hill country and see what the land is, and whether the people who dwell in it are strong or weak, whether they are few or many, and whether the land that they dwell in is good or bad, and whether the cities that they dwell in are camps or strongholds, and whether the land is rich or poor, and whether there are trees in it or not. Be of good courage and bring some of the fruit of the land." Now this time was the season of the first ripe grapes. So they went in and spied out the land from the wilderness of Zin to Rehob, near Lebo Hamath. Now let's skip down to verse 23. And they came to the valley of Eshcol and cut down from there a branch with a single cluster of grapes. And they carried it on a pole between the two of them, and they also brought some pomegranates and figs. Here we see the spies are sent into the land, and they examine the promises of God. They see what God has to offer for them and the people of Israel. Let's skip down to verse 25. At the end of 40 days, they returned from spying out the land, and they came to Moses and Aaron and to all the congregation of the people of Israel in the wilderness of Paran at Kadesh. They brought back word to them and to all the congregation and showed them the fruit of the land. And they told him, "We came to the land which you sent to us. It flows with milk and honey, and this is its fruit. However, the people who dwell in the land are strong, and the cities are fortified and very large. And besides, we saw the descendants of Anak there." So, like I said, they see the promises that God has to offer. They see what God can give to them. They just don't like the way that they have to get there. They're not willing to accept the way that they have to get there. Let's go to verse 30. But Caleb quieted the people before Moses and said, "Let us go up at once and occupy it, for we are well able to overcome it." Then the men who had gone up with him said, "We are not able to go against the people, for they are much stronger than we are." Here Caleb, and later we see Joshua does the same, stands up and gives the people of Israel another option. He demands that they do what God says is right, to do what God says. Caleb and later Joshua are the only ones preaching to do what God has asked. So here the people of Israel are given the same choice that you and me are given today. And that's either to take the easy way out and not do what God has asked, or have the discipline and be able to hold yourself enough accountable to do what God has asked you. Let's skip to chapter 14, and we'll start in verse 1. Chapter 14, we'll start in verse 1. Then all the congregation raised a loud cry, and the people wept that night. And all the people of Israel grumbled against Moses and Aaron. The whole congregation said to them, "Would that we had died in the land of Egypt, or that we had died in this wilderness. Why is the Lord bringing us into the land to fall by the sword? Our wives and our little ones will become a prey. Would it not be better for us to go back to Egypt?" Here the Israelites sadly make the wrong choice. They choose the easy way out. They choose to not have discipline. They choose to not hold themselves accountable enough to do what God has asked. Now let's go to verse 6 of chapter 14. And Joshua the son of Nun and Caleb the son of Jephunneh, who were among those who had spied out the land, tore their clothes and said to all the congregation of the people of Israel, "The land which we passed through to spy out is an exceedingly good land. If the Lord delights in us, he will bring us into the land and give it to us, a land that flows with milk and honey. Only do not rebel against the Lord, and do not fear the people of the land, for they are bread for us. Their protection is removed from them, and the Lord is with us. Do not fear them." Here, Caleb and Joshua choose to hold the people accountable. They lead, and they lead the way that God has asked them. Although they are lonely in their leadership, they are still willing to lead. Let's skip down to verse 10. Then all the congregation said to stone them with stones, but the glory of the Lord appeared at the tent of meeting to all the people of Israel. Here, Caleb and Joshua are rejected by the people. The people reject accountability and the leadership that that Caleb and Joshua have showed. Let's go to verse 30. Verse 30 of chapter 14. I want you to keep in mind that Joshua and Caleb have stuck through, although they're lonely, they've stuck through this persecution and continue to be willing to do what God has asked them to do. Verse 30 says, "Not one shall come into the land where I swore that I would make you dwell, except Caleb the son of Jephunneh and Joshua the son of Nun." Here, God acknowledges Caleb and Joshua's long-suffering and their willingness to be the leaders that they need to be. And He promises that He will reward them. And although they were lonely in their leadership, and I realize lonely has negative connotations, and I say lonely because what they did was not fun, and it did not make them happy. Not only did it not make them happy, they had a disagreement with a lot of people, and it did not make them happy. But it was necessary to make sure what God needed to be done, got done. Although they were lonely doing what they did, they received their reward, not lonely, but now alone with God. The question you need to ask yourself tonight is, will you be rejected by men just like Joshua and Caleb and serve the Lord, or be rejected by God and take the easy way out and serve men? If there's any way we can assist you in making that decision tonight, please come forward as we stand and sing.